June 6, 1944, a day known as D-Day, 150,000 Allied soldiers crashed onto the beaches of northern France at Normandy. This would become known as the largest amphibious landing ever attempted in human history. But how did this come about? This all came about thanks to Operation Bodyguard, which would be known as the largest bluff in human history. During Operation Bodyguard, set in motion in June of 1943, Allied commanders would send fake radio transmissions to German code breakers in order to trick the Germans into thinking that the Allies would land at the Pas-de-Calais region, more to the west, rather than the Normandy region. The Allies also planted fake tanks, such as blow-up tanks and blow-up airplanes, across the English Channel so that German spotters would believe that all the Allied forces were gathering at the Pas-de-Calais region. This picture here shows one of the blow-up tanks being set into place during that June of 1943. Now, what does this have to do with bluffing? Bluffing is a game mechanism, and a game mechanism is known as the framework of a board game that encourages interaction between players. Bluffing is defined as trying to deceive someone into as of your intentions or your power that you hold over that game. Now, where is bluffing found? Bluffing is found in common games such as poker and euchre, but recently bluffing is becoming a lot more popular in board games. Some examples of these board games include the game The Resistance. Now, The Resistance was a game that involves hidden roles and bluffing. Now, the hidden roles, there are two factions in this game. So there is the tyrannical government that the Resistance is trying to overthrow, and then there are the spies that have infiltrated the Resistance. Now, as you can see here, you have this board right here. This shows the 5 missions that you try to complete during the game. So in this game, say you are a Resistance member. A Resistance member's only job in this game is to vote on whether the mission should pass or fail. Now, naturally, being the Resistance, they want the mission to pass in order to overthrow the tyrannical government. However, there are spies in the game. Now, the spies can choose to either pass the mission or to fail the mission. Now, you say, why would they want to pass the mission? Well, each time you do a mission, there is a different mission team that is put into motion for that game, for that round. So, for example, say you have 2 Resistance members and 1 spy. Now, obviously, it is going to become a lot more obvious if you would vote no automatically, because that automatically makes all 3 of those players a possible spy known to the other Resistance players. Now, the Resistance player's goal in this game is to pass 3 missions of the 5. The same being for the spies, they would choose to fail 3 missions of the 5. But the Resistance can also win by finding out who the spies are before the end of the game. So it's very important for the spies to deceive and bluff on certain missions to not give away as to who the faction is that they belong to. Now, another version of this game that encourages a lot more bluffing is the version where, so there is a Resistance leader who controls on who goes to the missions. Well, in this game, the leader can choose of who he wants versus who he doesn't want, rather than the normal version being, oh, you just select the next 3 people that are up. Now, in this, it becomes a lot more important for the spies to bluff, because the spies have to strategically hide a lot easier when they vote no versus when they vote yes on a mission. That way they can hide of the fact that they are spies. Now, my next example involves the game Secrets. Secrets is based off of a time during the Cold War where you have the CIA, the KGB, and hippies. Now, there are 2 main goals for these 3 sets of factions. The main goal of the CIA and the KGB is to get the highest amount of points by collecting as many cards as possible, based off of the point values on the cards. Now, the hippies' goal is to have the lowest score. So, for example, you have these 8 character cards right here. Now, the highest character card would be the scientist. So, during the game, in gameplay, what you would do is you go around and you take a card for each, a person takes a card for each turn. Now, you cannot keep that card, but you can bluff to keep the card or to discard the card. So in this example, right here, let's say you belong to the hippie faction. Now, you already have the assassin and the politician. So your goal is to have the lowest score. So right now you would have a score of 3. Well, your turn comes around, and now you have drawn the scientist card, which has a score of 5. Obviously, as a hippie, you do not want to take that score of 5 because you would then have a score of 8. So instead, you would choose a person in the game across from you that you can attempt to bluff and give the card away. So instead of saying, oh man, you should really take this card because it will help you a lot, it has really good power-ups that help you throughout the game, you would say that, you know, you have a really, you think you know who that person is already, such as they could be a KGB member and you already know that, so you want to try and make that card out to them because they cannot see the card. So instead, you want to make that card out to them as a really low or possibly a negative card, like on the slide before here, such as the detective or the psychiatrist. Now, so once you go through, you will discard the card as the person, as you have bluffed, if you have bluffed correctly, and the person will take the card and you will have discarded that card and bluffed your way out of raising your score. Now my third example is Spartacus, A Game of Blood and Treachery. This is based in ancient Rome around the gladiator fighting ring that was highly popular during the time of the Roman Empire. In this game, there are 4 houses. Each of these houses is a house that owns gladiators and or buys gladiators. So your main goal in this game is to gain as much prestige and power as one of the houses as possible. So as you can see here, you have the board, you have 4 different houses around each side of the board, and you have the gladiator ring. Bluffing comes into place in this game where players can buy and auction different power-ups, such as weapons and traits, as well as gladiators themselves during the game. Bluffing comes into play here by hiding your wealth during the game. Why does hiding your wealth become important? Say you are your player on the left. You have 4 currency coins versus your opponent's 6 currency coins. Now, when it comes to buying a card such as Spartacus, which is one of the best gladiators in the game to purchase for your house in order to fight for your house. So in this case, you would want to bluff higher. That way your opponent would think that you have a higher amount of wealth and are willing to spend more. Therefore, they might avoid trying to bid on the card. This is because during the game, all wealth is hidden, which makes it easier to bluff through your wealth in order to buy your cards and in order to gain more power throughout the game. A summary, bluffing is extremely important as a game mechanism in creating interactions between different players, as bluffing forces you to interact and study other players versus what you think their next move will be and how you can bluff to them in order to change what your move might be and influence them to make a wrong move to progress yourself farther throughout the game.